The devil dragged me into a sinister game, a game I never chose to play. With a snap of his fingers, he transformed my appearance into that of a completely different person. My own reflection in the mirror became a stranger. Then he laid out the rules with a cruel smirk.
You have one day. If anyone can recognize you and call you by your name, you'll win your freedom. But if no one does, you will vanish forever.
I tried to protest, to beg, but it was no use. The devil's word was final, and there was no escaping the game. He added one final, devastating twist. I couldn't speak. I wasn't allowed to explain or even give a hint. I could only rely on my presence and my eyes, hoping someone I loved would see beyond my altered face and recognize the person within. The clock started ticking. I went from one familiar face to another. Friends, colleagues, distant relatives. I stood in front of them, willing them to see me, praying they'd sense something familiar. But every time, their eyes skimmed over me as though I were a stranger. A neighbor I had known for years brushed past me without a second glance. A close friend even smiled politely before walking away, not a trace of recognition in her gaze. Hours passed, and despair grew heavier in my chest. I visited nearly everyone who mattered to me, but no one stopped, no one paused, no one called my name. With each rejection, the weight of my inevitable disappearance pressed harder on me. I was running out of time. By the 20th hour, I was exhausted, my hope nearly extinguished. But one person remained, my son, my last chance. I waited outside the school gates, trembling with nerves. My palms were sweaty, my heart hammering in my chest as the students began pouring out. Then I saw him, my boy. He was older now, but I'd recognize him anywhere. He was my last hope, my lifeline. I stood a few steps away, silently willing him to look at me, to see beyond the stranger's face. He glanced my way briefly, his eyes meeting mine for a fleeting moment. But then he kept walking, his pace quickening as if I were just another passerby. My heart sank. It was over. I stood there frozen, tears brimming in my eyes, a bitter smile curling on my lips. Of course, he wouldn't recognize me. How could he? My face, my voice, everything was different. But then, something unexpected happened. My son stopped. He turned around and looked at me again, this time with furrowed brows. His gaze lingered longer, his eyes filled with confusion. I didn't dare move. I held my breath, afraid to shatter whatever fragile connection had sparked in his mind. Slowly, he walked toward me. With each step, my heart pounded louder. He stopped in front of me, his head tilted slightly as he studied my face. I saw hesitation in his eyes, a flicker of something familiar stirring within him. Finally, in a small, trembling voice, he asked,
Are you my dad?"
His words broke through my fear like a ray of light in the darkness. Tears poured down my face uncontrollably. I nodded, my chest tight with a mix of relief, love, and anguish. Just as I was about to celebrate, believing my son had saved me with his hesitant words, the devil appeared before me, his grin sharp and cruel.
How touching. But I still win. Based on the rules, and as always, I came out victorious.
As my body faded into nothingness, a realization struck me. The truth hit me harder than my own disappearance. What had I discovered? Why did I still lose, even when my son recognized me?